My name is Leo Rodriguez, and I will be doing this presentation on the Naval Facility Project. I will be sharing with you the scheduling procedure of the site and structure phase of this project. The purpose of this project is to gain a better understanding of the scheduling process and what it takes to put a project together from start to finish. The items I will be covering in this presentation will be the project description, the scope of work, the execution strategy, the planning basis, the critical path, issues and concerns, risk and opportunities, and any assumptions that I made with the schedule. Here is a brief description of the project. The name of the project is the T6B JPATS Training OPS Parallel Facility. We were given the start date of June 2nd of this year with a total duration of 210 calendar days. The site is on government property located in Milton, Florida. As stated before, this project was broken down into 3 phases: site and structure, interiors, and core and shell, which my group was responsible for the site and structure phase. This building needs to be LEED Silver certified according to the specs, and it needs to score on the following criteria: sustainable sites, the building needs to reduce pollution and soil erosion; water efficiency, the building needs to use 20% less water than similar sized buildings. It will be scored on energy and atmosphere, which the energy performance of the main systems such as the HVAC and lighting should be fairly well. Materials and resources, it needs to reuse and recycle materials, and it will be scored on indoor environment and quality, which pertains to the indoor air quality of the building. And we will have regular working hours of 8.5 hours Monday through Friday. This illustration shows a job site layout of the project. On the top left hand corner there is a legend that indicates each color and its description. Trucks will enter and leave the job site through the main gate entrance, which is located at the bottom of the screen. The yellow is the staging area for materials and equipment. The purple is the detention facility on site. The orange is the office trailer and sanitary facility, which will also include the parking area for employees. And the blue star at the top of the screen is the actual job site. As I stated before, our group was in charge of the site and structure phase of this project. Each individual was responsible for a certain section of the phase. The table shows each scope of work and the individual that was in charge. The activities were placed in sequence from start to finish, but in this case we used the last planner method and worked backwards to get our starting point of the project. And durations were given to us by the individual according to their production rate that they use on their bid sheet. These 2 tables show the breakdown of the scope of work on my P6 file. Each activity was sorted according to its scope of work. As you could tell, not every scope of work had the same amount of activities. Some had more, some had less. I went ahead and broke down those activities and added some columns. The columns that were added were the activity ID, the activity name, the total duration of each activity, the start date, the finish date, the early start date, the early finish date, and all the predecessors that were involved for each activity. The execution strategy for this project includes the demolition of an existing parking lot, which will later become a new building facility. The phase execution was 3 phases. The contracting strategy included was a contractor, a contracting officer, and subcontractors. The contracting type was stated in the specifications, which included to provide detailed breakdown of contract price with unit prices. So now that we had a strategy on how to tackle this project, the planning basis of this project began. The first area of planning we covered was the storage facility and staging area. We decided to place these near the actual job site to prevent any loss of time or travel. The construction equipment was scheduled as needed depending on activities performed for that day or week. As stated before, the owner wanted sustainable construction and LEED Silver certified. Before excavation began on this project, we had to obtain permits at least 15 days in advance. And our biggest concern on this project was the safety of others, because the buildings were occupied, which included pedestrian travel and car travel. The picture shown is our last planner system method. We went ahead and put sticky notes on the wall, which include the activities that were sorted from finish to start. Each different color sticky note represents a different scope of work. Each column represents different activities that could possibly go on at the same time. And each sticky note has a description of the duration plus the predecessor and successor for that particular activity. This slide talks about a critical path, any issues that came upon when creating the critical path, and any concerns. There were a total of 18 activities that were located on the critical path. No major issues were identified when creating the schedule. And as you can see, the majority of activities were performed in the first couple of weeks of the phase, which can create a problem because if those activities are not taken care of in the specific time, then the critical path method can change. This illustration here is a classic schedule layout from my P6 file. As you can see from the picture, the first activity takes place on June 2nd. And the finish date for this phase was on July 31st. Each activity is in order from activity ID. The total duration for this phase was calculated to be 81 days. As you can tell, most activities took about 1 day at the beginning of the phase, and the longer activities are shown after that. We calculated that our longest activity was masonry, which took about 10 days. Now I will talk about the assumptions, risks, and opportunities dealing with this phase of the project. No overtime was assigned because we assumed project will be done on time. And if overtime was assigned, that would just create more work for the next person in line. We assumed everything was going to be assembled on site. Some risks are summer means hurricane season in Florida. We will probably need a backup schedule for weather delays. Some opportunities would be the site access. Highway 87 runs near the naval base. And as far as for the developed area, there will be no need to build from scratch. This concludes my